Good afternoon, everyone. Hello, and welcome to Enlightened World Network. This is Gratitude Happy Hour. And yes, I know it's not my normal time to be on, but that's okay because my guest is at his happy hour in London. So we are accommodating that. With me is Dr. Ruth Anderson, the co-host for today. Hi, Ruth.
So glad to be here. Thanks, Teri.
And I would like to introduce Arvind Devalia. Arvind is an author, and I am reading his book and rereading his book called Get the Life You Love and Live It. Arvind is passionate about people and is committed to a life of contribution, connection, and celebration. His life purpose and intention is to help as many people as possible to be the best they can be and to connect them with their true passion and create the life they love by inspiring and supporting them as a friend, a writer, a speaker, coach, and philanthropist. Arvind lives in St. John's Woods in central London, from where he runs his coaching practice, and he is available for private consultations. We're going to get to know this man, and I am so excited, Arvind, that you are joining us today from London. Welcome.
Thank you very much, Teri. That's a really great introduction. I mean, I can't remember when I last wrote all those things, but obviously you've done your research. But yeah, thank you for having me. I mean, I know we've been trying to make this happen for the last 2 months, but it's finally happened. So thank you. And you got company as well.
She does. Teri's house sitting. And she's now living with 3 dogs. She's used to a cat, but now she's got 3 dogs. And one of them, it sounds like Dingo, perhaps, is making himself known.
I've never had
Sorry about that. We're having a delivery, and the fur kids do not like anyone to come on their property. So they did their job. They protected the property.
So yeah, so as I said, well, thank you for having me, and I'm glad this is finally happening after all these weeks of trying, and yeah. And thank you also for accommodating me on my time rather than yours, so it's great. I think it's your 1 p.m.?
Yes, 1 o'clock in the afternoon.
And it's coming up to the end of the day for us, and as I look out of the window, it's an absolutely stunning evening. It's coming up to autumn days now for us. But the last couple of days, if I can turn it around, actually, let me just turn it around and show you. There you go. I'm not sure how much of that you can see.
Oh, pretty.
So I'm very lucky. I live on the 2nd floor, and there's an amazing copper beech tree just outside. So I'm getting a lot of natural energy right now from the tree.
Yes, I love nature, and it does inspire us, doesn't it? You know, you talk in your book about exercises that we can do to find that best us. And nature is one of those ways, isn't it? Can you talk about that, about how we can use nature in our life?
It's part of my routine, daily routine, is to try and get into nature, either the back of my garden or better still, where I am. There's a number of parks around me. I don't know how well you know your London, but there's a park called Regent's Park, which is about 10 minutes walk from here. So I go there 3, 4, 5 times a week. And in fact, the book you mentioned, I wrote it in the park many years back. That summer, I just spent 3, 4 afternoons every week, took my writing pad with me, and it was just amazing, actually. It almost felt like channeling the book, because I was surrounded by all these trees and little birds and few dogs as well, and it was just amazing that it all just came through. And it's almost as if I wasn't writing it, I was being led to write it in a certain way. And I recommend everyone to have some time in nature as part of their daily routine if they can. If it's not possible, because not everyone has a park near them, maybe they can make it happen 2, 3 times a week. Or even if they've got house plants around them, that's also useful to have. And it's almost like having a shower when you go out. You get a shower of positive ions and positive vibes. Just go out, sit under a tree, meditate. If it calls you, then you could even hug a tree, but that may not necessarily be something that most people want to do. But yeah, as much time in nature as you can, I would say.
So I would love to hear more, Arvind, about your journey and what brought you to that place of sitting there in nature and writing a book such as this.
Yeah, so you know, sometimes stuff happens in life, and at the time you don't know why it's happening, and you go through changes, or you might go through some traumatic experiences. But when you look back, it's actually the making of you. So many years back, I went through a number of life changes. It all happened very quickly. I was married at the time, and I got divorced, and the .com startup I was involved in, that went belly up as well, so that folded quite quickly. So I took some time out and ended up in India for a couple of months. And I worked is the wrong word really. I helped out at a school in South India. It's a little school set up by a friend's mother. I say little, it was little at the time, but now it's 500 plus children and it's become quite a big organization now. And that month was probably the most significant time of my life really when I look back. I was amongst children, I was amongst some orphans, and I had some couple of transformation or nirvana moments when I thought, wow, this is it, this is what it's all really about. And when I got back to England, I thought, this is what I want to do more of. I wanted to get away from the sort of work I was doing and be more involved in making a positive difference to people's lives in some way. And at that time, I didn't know what that looked like, but a couple of years later, I came across the idea of coaching, life coaching, and that just seemed to be so right for me. And soon enough, I trained, over the course of this next year, I slowly built up my practice. And then again, another synchronous thing happened whereby I was raising some money for a charity, Red Nose, I think that's also in the US now, or Comic Relief. And I approached one of my local restaurants, cafes, to have a day when I could just raise the money for this Red Nose Day. And as a result of that, I got featured in the local paper, and then they did a really good story on me. So as a way of thanking them, I said, look, why don't I do something for you? Can I write you a column? There'll be no charge, there'll be no cost to you. I'll just write you a weekly column when I talk about life coaching and simple ideas about how to improve your life. And they loved the idea, so I had that column for exactly 1 year. And about 6 months later, I realized that I had so much material, I could turn that into a book. So that October, I approached a friend of mine who's an editor, and I asked her if this was possible to get a book ready by Christmas. She said, well, if you drop everything for the next 5 weeks and get me the first draft by the end of October, early November, we can do it. And that's exactly what we did. 30th of November that year, I had a copy of my first book in my hands, and that was the first book. I don't know whether you can see it. The book is called Get a Life, and it was a simple workbook, spring bound. And this was created in literally 5 weeks from scratch. So that was my first dive into writing, and I'm self-published. All my books are self-published, so I raised the funds to get 2,000 copies printed, and I sold them all within 15 to 18 months. And then I thought, why don't I do my next one? And then the same thing, but this time I spent a bit more time. I spent 6 months rather than 6 weeks, 6 weeks on it. Spent a lot of time in nature, in Regent's Park, and that's when we got the second book. This is the one that I sent you, and that's the one you're referring to earlier on. Oh yeah, there you go.
Yes, I love this book. Just love it, and all of the inspiration that's in it. I read a lot from it on some of the shows that I do, and some of the inspirational quotes that you have put in it are just something that really make a difference. I was looking for the one that I wanted to bring up because I think it really touched me. It's by Johann Wolfgang. It says, whatever you do or dream, you can begin it. That quote is, until one is committed, there is hesitancy, the chance to draw back, always ineffectiveness. Concerning all acts of initiative, there is one elementary truth, the ignorance of which kills countless ideas and endless plans, that the moment one definitely commits oneself, then providence moves too. And that has been my life. When I've had a goal or had a thought or had this inspiration to do something, when you procrastinate and you just don't make that commitment, it's just always a goal. It's always a plan. But once you say yes, once you say I'm all in, it's like heaven and earth move to make that happen for you.
It does. It really does. And I've got so many stories I could share with you. So even with the first book, speaking to one person, she's now become a really good friend of mine, Joe Parfit. And within the moment we both got committed to it, I said, okay, you'll have the first draft within 2-3 weeks of the book. In the meantime, she got me connected with a book cover designer and a printer and someone to do my typesetting and do the copyright, the editing and other things as well. And it all just happened. Like there was a sequence of things just came together. And that's probably the hardest I ever worked. In those 2-3 weeks when I was writing the first book, because I was on a deadline and there was a commitment. And the commitment was that we'll have the book in our hands by the 30th of November. And the reason for that date was I wanted to get the book out there for Christmas. And then sure enough, I had 2,000 copies in my front room and I had a couple of book parties and I sold 200-300 copies in the month of December. And that more or less covered all my costs as well. So it's funny how all that happened, as you said, with that commitment. Once I got committed, things started happening. And it was miraculous how everything just came together. I was talking to a friend earlier this couple of days back about how magical it was in India for both of us. We were both in India last year about the same time, not together, but when we were around there, we were noticing just so much happening, so many coincidences, so-called coincidences happening. And I said something like, there's so much magic in India. And then then I took a step back. I said, actually, there's so much magic all around us. It's maybe when you're on holiday, you're more open to it. So even today, I look back, a couple of the things that happened to me today. I went out to the post office and I got chatting to someone in the post office and we had a really nice human connection. Last week, I met somebody outside the bank and just a very passing conversation. And the next thing she says, oh, it's so good to meet new people. I'm just new to the area. And it turns out that she just moved from the Middle East, going through sounded like a messy divorce. And I gave her a couple of connections and I sent her the book. And just so much simple human connection has led to so much more further down the line. So what I'd say is there is magic happening all around us. We just have to be open to it and go with the flow. I think that's a phrase I would use a lot. Go with the flow and see what happens.
I would love to ask you a question, Arvind. So you talked about nature and you talked about how with nature you receive information, sort of channeling, if you will. Mm-hmm. Do you receive information from other sources besides nature? What inspires you to be able to turn around and inspire others?
Sure. So channeling is a word that I use. Some people might not be aware of what that means. It just means you get some intuition or you might just get a thought come through and you wonder where that thought comes from. What I found, what inspires me is really being around people. Friends who know me, they know me very much as a people's person. For almost, for 18 years now, I've been holding a picnic in the park near me, the park I mentioned, Regent's Park. Started off as a little picnic where I invited my friends, family, and there were about 40, 50 people. And every year since then, I've been having it. And then a couple of years back, we had almost 500 people in the course of the afternoon. And I call it Friends and Friends Picnic. The idea is to literally bring people together. And that, to me, has been one of the most inspiring things that I've ever done. And the reason why it's so inspiring for me is that I get a lot of big buzz from meeting new people, connecting them, and seeing what synergies happen. 7 years back, a couple who met at the picnic have been together ever since. And last year, actually 2 years ago now, they had their second child. So that is some inspiration. And also, I think I have a gift of connecting with people very easily. So I get to connect and there's a human connection quite quickly, normally within a few seconds. And a lot of people have said to me, that's my gift, is the ability to connect and to meet people where they're at. And to me, it doesn't seem like a gift. It's like it's natural. It just seems to come easy. I used to think that everyone could do this, but apparently not.
It's true. Not everybody can do that.
Okay.
It definitely is a gift. And, just from the inspiration I received from the book that you've written, and I haven't read both your books, I've only read this one. You're really great at leading us into a place where we do that self-examination. And let's talk about your book. You have different exercises that we can do.
Mm-hmm.
And those exercises really make us think. So as we're doing those, we're growing spiritually. And so I'd just like for you to tell us more about how, when you have someone that you're working with individually or a group, how do you lead them through that progress of just the beginning? How do we start? If someone hasn't had a clue about how to do any self-examination, where would you start with them?
Sure. Okay, let me just go back one step, because you mentioned 2 books. I just want to clarify that was the first book, To Get a Life, and then this is the second book. So this second book is a better version of the first one. So you don't even need to go through the first book anymore. This is the, if you like, the more detailed, it's much deeper than the first one. And also, just to clarify, people ask me what's different about your book. And I tell them, look, honestly, there are literally thousands, tens of thousands of books out there in the personal development field. I've got about a couple of hundred books there on my bookshelf on my right. You can maybe see some there. And I honestly say to them, look, there's absolutely no difference between my book and the ones out there, except for a couple of things which makes it different, in the sense that it's a workbook. It's not just a reading book. As you mentioned, exercises. Each chapter, there are 25 very short chapters, and each chapter is only 2 pages long, and there are 2 pages of exercises. And I call them actions. I'll probably change some of the wording in my next edition, and I also call the chapters steps. I mean, it implies there are 25 steps to get the life you love. It's actually not this case. It's just a simple chapter. And so there are 25 chapters or steps. And if people were to go through them step by step, it would make sense, because the first chapter is about creating the vision for your life, and the second one is about getting clear about your values, and then the third one's about life purpose, and so on. So there is a chronological order, but you could actually, a reader could just dive in anywhere and still be freestanding. Each step is, or chapter is freestanding. So when people first come to me, say that they want to either improve their life in a certain area or just work on their personal development, we just have an initial conversation, is just getting to know each other, but also going quite deep, in the sense that getting them to know what's really important about their life. They might come to me with a simple challenge, but then we go much deeper and they realize that there is something much more to their life than they thought. And to me, the key thing is about getting them connected with their purpose, their passion, getting them created with that one dream that will make them unstoppable, that will make them go and do it. So I've had in this very sofa I'm sitting on, I had a chap come to me from Dubai. It was our very first meeting. We never met before. He'd been referred to me, and he'd grown up in India, but now he was doing really well in his business in Dubai. And I talked about, like, what is it that you really want? I can coach you, help you improve your business, help you improve your relationships. What's the real purpose? What's really, really driving you forward? And so I said to him, look, what is it that you want to do with your life? If everything was hunky-dory, and what's next? And then he talked about his life in India when he was growing up. He said when he was growing up, he and his family weren't exactly affluent, they were quite poor, but yet there were much poorer kids around him. And he said once he's able to, he'd love to go back and help them out and do something for the street children in the city where he grew up. And I said, okay, so what is it? He said he really wants to do something around food. He couldn't stand the thought of children going hungry overnight. So I said, okay, great. And I could tell that this was really something very important for him, very deep down. And I mentioned, when would you start? So he said, I'm now 40. He said, oh, getting married soon, maybe 5-6 years from now, 7 years from now, I'll start working on this. So I said, that's great, but what happens in the meantime? I said, look, did you know that roughly there are about 20,000 children apparently dying of hunger every day? Hunger, malnutrition, starvation, famine, drought, etc., the whole category. And I said, look, if we say 20,000 a day, say roughly 100,000 a week, 50 weeks a year, let's say, just round it down. So you're looking at 5 million a year, kids dying of starvation, hunger. So by the time you do something about it, let's say 7 years, there's 35 million kids. I said, can you really wait till that long? And he was very tearful because he suddenly realized that he couldn't wait anymore. And that was very powerful insight for him that he had to do something with his life now. That was really important to him, and not wait any longer. And we all do this, right? We all sort of say one day, someday we'll do something that we really want to do, our dreams, or just make the impact that they want to, but it never happens, or doesn't happen until it's too late. We all get so caught up in the day-to-day challenges, we never focus on the long-term dream that we have. I'm not sure that's a question, but
Yeah, that is so true what you're saying. And I know Ruth and I have talked many times about, the vision that we have and seeing other people finding their passion and living their passion. And Ruth, do you want to talk about that, about your vision for Enlightened World Network and how we are a network that helps people to find their why? When we find their passion, we find the why.
Right, thanks. So Enlightened World Network was the vision of Archangel Michael. And this started about 4 years ago, where in meditation, I would hear to create this platform. Well, this platform is to give light workers. And to me, a light worker is anybody who brings divine light into the world. Doesn't matter what your vocation is, but because of your connection to the spiritual divinity, into the universe, you're able to bring divine light into the world. So Enlightened World Network has been created to provide a platform for light workers to have a voice, to bring their message out into the world in a really safe community for doing that. So not only are we helping light workers to get their message out, but we're giving folks that are new to energy or want to build and transform spiritually a place to do that, where they can learn from each other and build community. So that's what we do here.
Yeah, and it's, like I said, when we can find our passion, that's what it's all about, isn't it? We find our passion, we find our why, we find the purpose for us on our path. And so there may be someone out in the audience right now that you had this thought about, I would love to do something about the children that are starving, like Arvind was talking about, or about people who are just still wrapped up in the illusion of separation and seeing the contrast and seeing competition and comparison, which leads to those low vibrations of, just being in an energy of hatred or bigotry or whatever is going on in the world. So you may be someone that has a passion that says, I want to develop this. I want to find my why. I want to find how I can get out there in the world. And to me, books like this, like what you've written, Arvind, is that impetus for us. It's like it can take us to that place of self-examination so that we can move forward. And when we listen to you talk, you talk with passion about your life and the purpose that you have in life to help enlighten other people. So I know you have the same goal that we do here at Enlightened World Network, is to help others.
Sure. And I also just say that a lot of people seem to get stuck on waiting to discover their why. And something that Robert Holden said to me once, which I remember. Robert Holden, you might know of him, he's a author and coach and speaker out there. I was at a talk when he said something which really resonated. He said, rather than waiting for your life purpose to show up, just make your life purpose to be love and kindness to everyone around you. And that's a very powerful way of living, because then you don't have to be constantly searching for a purpose which may never show up or which never lights you up. But by simply being loving and kind to those around you, you are living, you are being purposeful. You are making a change in the universe, if you like. You are spreading your light then. And that could be as simple as just being kind to the people who serve you in your local supermarket, for example. Especially over the last 6 months, they've been through some horrendous times where they've been through a lot of stress and challenges because of the COVID-19. So they, for example, need even more love and attention than ever before. And what I find is just by saying hello to them and acknowledging them and getting to know them, every time I now go back in, it's like I've gone to family now. They all know me and I know them. And it always works both ways, because they're extra attentive to me. And I know it makes a difference to them, because I reckon 9 out of 10 people who go into supermarket don't have any interaction with the people serving them. So whereas one person shows up and makes an effort to speak to them properly, it makes such a huge difference to them. So I would say to anyone watching this, today, tomorrow, next time you go into the supermarket, just be extra kind, extra loving to the people around you. Quite often, these people have been there since very early in the morning or even overnight. And you just don't know what's going on for them, right? And by a stranger showing some attention, some kindness, it can make a huge difference to them. And everyone's probably got stories where someone's been kind to them or the other way around, and it's actually transformed their life in a certain way.
I think that's a
point,
yeah. Arvind. So many people think that their life passion has to be something huge that's going to impact millions of people, and it doesn't have to be that way. There are so many people that have the capacity to touch people one heart at a time, and then it can just ripple out and create such a beautiful impact. You don't have to be out there trying to make a name for yourself. So that's a beautiful point.
Yeah, exactly. There's a famous starfish story, isn't there, where there's a man on the beach who's putting a tide has come in and he's collecting all these single starfishes and bringing them back in. And then somebody asked him why is he doing that, and he said, well, I'm making a difference to each one of these starfish. And the other guy says, look, there are millions of them out there. How can you, what's the point? And he said, well, it sure made a difference to this one. Then he chucks another one back in. So every little bit helps. You never know. So it's about a couple of years back, I was at the traffic lights not far from my home, and I got chatting to a guy who was also waiting for the lights with his 2 young kids. His name is George, and we just walked together for about 10 minutes, and he said he was looking for a job and he was looking for some inspiration. And then I said, well, actually, I've got a book I can give you. So I sent him the book the very same evening. And he messaged me back. He said, that's so amazing. So only this morning I was praying that somebody or something would show up to help me move forward. So George and I became really good friends in the end. I coached him for a while, and he had his family and his wife and the 2 children have now moved to Sydney. They moved from London to Sydney, and we've been friends ever since. And a couple of weeks before they left, they came round to my back garden, and we had a really amazing evening, the 4 of them and myself. And then the kids gave me a little present. It was all well wrapped. So George is an artist. So there were a couple of canvases all wrapped up, and then the kids opened them for me. And so George had created 2 paintings, especially as a little gift.
That's beautiful.
All because I spoke to him at the traffic lights about 6 months before. Wow. Maybe I could even show you them, actually. They're in the kitchen. Shall I show them to you?
Yes, I would love to see them.
Oops. I'm going to move around a bit.
While he's doing that, you mentioned speaking to the people at the grocery store that are checking you out. Those people that are helping you, they all wear name tags. And I think it's really awesome if you can just call them by their name. It makes such a difference when you hear your name being said.
What great.
These are the paintings.
Do you see those? These are paintings from a man I met at the traffic lights. Amazing, aren't they? So was such an emotional moment when the kids unwrapped them for me, and it was like I wasn't expecting anything. It's just like, wow. But and knowing and addressing people by their names. I mean, most people don't even bother reading the name tags, but the fact that someone's made an effort to read it and then call them by that name, yeah, actually.
Arvind, in your coaching, you talk about personal responsibility in co-creating your life. Can you talk about that for a moment?
Yeah, funny, that's one book I don't really talk about, but that's another book as well I wrote a few years back. The book is called Personal Social Responsibility. And to me, everyone is responsible for what happens in the world today. And rather than blaming others or complaining about what's going on in the world today, I think if everyone took social responsibility for what's going on right now, and that starts from the simple things like recycling, taking care of your personal energy. So rather than being someone who is angry and causing discord out there, if everyone took care of their own energy and looked after how they show up, I think that makes a big difference to those around them. And every little bit helps again. It's about causing ripples, but ripples of kindness rather than disruption.
That's beautiful. And I think especially now,
Yeah, especially
so
now.
many different ways that we can demonstrate personal responsibility.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, especially also what's happened a few months back with the Black Lives Matter movement, and suddenly we become much more aware of how unfair the world has been for a large proportion of our societies. We all have stories about, especially even as a brown person, I've experienced so much discrimination and racism, but I know that what I've been through, experience is almost nothing compared to what our Black friends have been going through. And I know even in my own community, the Asian community, there's a lot of racism, and it's everywhere. You know, it's almost it's a pandemic. It's a pandemic of racism, and by being personally responsible and knowing that the buck ends with us, really. So I can't personally go around blaming anyone else if I haven't cleaned up my own act first. And that's not just on the racism front, but on other fronts as well. It's like, how do I show up? Do I light up a room when I enter it, or do I light it up when I leave it?
I love that.
Wow, that's profound.
Yeah.
So Arvind, how important is gratitude to you?
I think gratitude is probably the most important thing that a person should cultivate. In the book, I talk a lot about this, having an attitude of gratitude. In fact, that's the whole chapter is attitude of gratitude. And that could be as simple as having a mental list of things you're grateful for, or writing things down. A few years back, I started a notebook, and I wrote on both sides of the notebook. On the back was things I was giving, and on the front was the things I was receiving. And suffice to say that the front bit is much more filled in than the back bit. There's so many things I'm receiving. So, for example, I met up with a friend on Saturday, and it's a fairly good, close friend, but she went well out of her way to prepare an amazing lunch for me. And it was like, it was a freshly cooked, properly cooked, home cooked Indian meal with about 5-6 different items. And she spent the whole morning preparing it. And then afterwards we went for a very long walk. And so things like that is so much to be grateful, so much gratitude we can have for things like that. But it was just unexpected, you know? And then you can look at things like even waking up in the morning, being gratitude that you've gone through another day, because if you woke up, it means you're alive. So you made it through to another day. And personally, what I do is first part of the morning, I spend some time in gratitude. Either write things down by hand or on my phone, or just doing a mental list, and keeping that attitude of gratitude throughout the day as much as I can. Obviously, things happen and we step out of it, but I found that's the single one most important way of transforming your life is to be in gratitude, having a gratitude practice of some sort. And it doesn't have to be very complicated. As I said, just do a mental list or just do some affirmations around gratitude. I am grateful for waking up this morning. I'm grateful for this nice cup of tea. Keeping very simple, and it gets us into the frame of coming from a place of gratitude and appreciation rather than resentment or looking for things which are wrong in your life. Because if you're in gratitude, it's impossible for you to be negative or disruptive or just being in a negative space. It raises your vibration. That's probably language that people understand. It raises up your vibration, raises your frequency. And it's a great way of also reconnecting. So if something happens, you can reframe it. Okay, what's the lesson here? What's the gratitude piece I can take away from this? And I'm trying really hard to think of something which has gone wrong for me the last few days, but I can't think of anything right now. Because there isn't really, it is what it is, right? Things happen. Like people, I might have missed a bus, for example, but then I got a chance to take the next bus or to walk. I got a chance to connect with someone else. So just start turning it around and say, okay, what's the learning in this point here? You mentioned earlier on before we came live, we were talking about my mum's roof. And I mentioned that in the context of how we were supposed to have done this 4 weeks back, but there was some work being done on my mum's building. And the gratitude piece was that we've been waiting to do this for a couple of years, for a few years. But when we when we took the decision to make it happen this summer, it was just amazing. The right people just showed up. And that's where the gratitude piece comes in. We couldn't have found a better roofing company to do the work for us. And the guys who came were just incredible. They were turning up at 7 in the morning every day, working all out till 4 in the afternoon, straight through. And we had such a good conversation with them, and we kept giving them cups of tea, and they were just totally grateful for it. And they were saying most places where they go to, they never get treated like that. They could even see the people inside having cups of tea, but not offering them any. And so the little things like that. And my point was that we can be bathing in a sea of gratitude. The more you give it out, the more comes back to you.
Absolutely. And, that's how we manifest in our life as well, is by going ahead and holding that gratitude for whatever it is that we're trying to bring through, seeing it already as being in our existence and being grateful for it, because gratitude is what will make the miracle come faster. So I love that you're sharing, and sharing about the workers and how you were treating the workers and treating each other equally, not seeing anyone higher than or lesser than. That is the ultimate, I think, way that we can bring peace into the world, is by not having that that discrimination of any.
And
it's always
something. Yes, I just recollected what happened. One of the days these guys were working was extremely hot. So what we did was, my sister-in-law, she went and got the Magnum ice cream, like the big chunky ones. And they were like so chuffed. It's like unheard of. They even haven't bought them ice cream. It was a simple thing for us to do, but it was just so much worthwhile. And funny enough, the guys did so much more than they needed to do. They left the place really clean, and they were really, really good. And I'm sure there would have been anyway, but it felt like there was much more coming back from them as well. So when they finished, we almost missed them, that they were going and one coming back, because the job had been done, because we all became such so close in that short time. So it's the point, I think the message really is, the more you give out, the more you come from that place of gratitude, you get so much more back. Like my paintings from the guy I met in the street, George.
Arvind, I have a question about your coaching. So you work with a variety of clients, from well-known personalities to people like us that, don't have a claim to fame. Do you find that there's a commonality of what blocks people from achieving their full potential?
Actually, yeah. Let me answer that by telling you what's common with all of them. What I've learned, having coached for all these years, is that everyone wants to make a difference in some way. Everyone wants to contribute. And my coaching is really about helping them find that peace. And what's stopping them almost always is like not thinking that they're there to make a contribution. And what I found is that once I connected them with that bigger piece, the little bits start sorting themselves out. If somebody really wants to make a difference, then soon they'll start sorting out their life in terms of decluttering their space, cleaning up their relationships, tidying up, cleaning up their diet. Once they're connected with the bigger piece, everything else seems to take care of itself. And what stops people initially is like not thinking they're good enough. And that seems to be a common theme. Like, am I really able to do this? Am I good enough for this? Who am I to be having such a lofty dream of helping the starving kids of India?
So really, we're our own blockers.
Yeah. And we also are our own energizers once we got clear about what is it that we want to do. In that phrase, in that quote you read out, Teri, it's about once you become clear about your intentions, the universe opens up for you. That is so true. But most people never get that clarity. Or if they get the clarity, they don't do anything about it, or they keep holding themselves back. And what I've been saying to people is that, look, your default state is a place of bliss, peace, serenity. And then once the thinking kicks in, is what takes you away. You have a certain thought, and then you have a certain emotion related to that thought, and you get lost in a world of thought and emotions. But once you realize that our default space is that place of bliss, peacefulness, serenity, and we can get back to it by meditation and staying in gratitude and slowing down, you can actually create what you want. And the way that happens is that once you're in that place of peace and calmness, the greater mind, the greater universe will help you, will guide you. It all comes back to call it whatever you want: meditation, gratitude. But once you get to that place of calmness and peacefulness, once the mind is slowed down, the emotions will be gone, or slow, or less confusing, less prominent, and then you can really create what you want from that space. And it's almost like plugging into the greater universal mind.
Excellent, thank you.
Right now, all three of us are much calmer. I feel sense of calmness right now.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Arvind, I know that Ruth has to leave us. There is another program coming up right after this one, and she is hosting that one. So Ruth, any parting question or comment that you'd like to make before you take off from this program today?
It's just such an honor to get to listen to you and hear what you're sharing. Because you are working with people that are already out there in the world, putting their message out there, there's a great level of responsibility for that.
Mm.
Does that ever, do you ever stop and think about how much you are able to impact what's happening in the world based on single conversations?
Yeah. Firstly, it is quite a privilege and honor to be doing this, because, as you say, having one conversation with one person could transform their life and so many others. And the thought that came to my mind was, I'm not doing enough myself.
Mm.
So I could be doing so much more.
Interesting.
There's a very famous scene at the end of Schindler's List, the movie about this German guy in a concentration camp who helps to save so many prisoners, Jewish people in the end. And when he's leaving at the end of the film, he has to escape the camp because the Russians were about to liberate the camp. So he was running away from them. And the Jewish inmates, people who were there, they created a ring for him with an inscription. I can't remember what it says on the inscription. And they gave it to him as a gift. They collected the gold by pulling out the gold from people's fillings, and they created this amazing ring. And he gets very emotional. So there's all these people there coming to say goodbye to him. And he gets very emotional and he says, I could have done so much more. He said that car could have saved 4 more lives. I could have done so much more. And that's the message that I would say to people is, don't look back at the end of your life, at the end of your journey and say, I could have done so much more. It's such a shame, even for me, but I'm getting emotional as I share this, is I don't want to look back and say, I could have done so much more. Maybe afterwards we can share, I'll share that clip from the end of that film, Schindler's List. Such a powerful way of, such a great analogy of our lives is when we look back, you don't want to say, I could have done so much more.
Beautiful.
So to answer your question is, I feel I could have done so much more. And yes, it is a great responsibility because every person I impact, either through my coaching or through the books or even a conversation like this, it is a great responsibility, but I also see it as a great honor as well.
Exactly. Well, I'm going to step out.
Thanks for the question and thanks for being with us. Yeah.
My pleasure, Arvind. Teri, thank you.
Thank you, Ruth. I appreciate you being here today. I really wanted Ruth to meet you, Arvind, because I've been speaking very highly of you. And so she had a lot of questions about what you do. And I'm so glad that she was here to experience your beautiful energy. Just like all of us that are here watching, we have a great audience that is with us. And Carrie, who I know you have met and spoken with, has shared your website for us. She put the link there in the comments. So anyone that wants to just click on that, you can go find out more information about this wonderful man. And I'm just honored that you were able to be with us today and to share with us from your heart. And it's just so beautiful. You know, I've had that same thought in my head that you were just talking about am I doing enough? Am I making a difference? And during the lockdown with COVID, we were all just having so much time on our hands. And I was like, what do I do with this time? And so I wrote a lot and I communicated with my guides and my angels a lot. And that was one of the questions that I asked. I was like, am I making a difference? Is there anything that I'm doing that's really making a difference out in the world, that people are being changed, they're being challenged to look at themselves? And I think we all, as light workers, go through that phase. You know, we're giving, and we're like, okay, is there anybody out there? Is anybody listening? Is anybody getting this feeling that I have inside, that I am sharing? So I think this is a common thing that we go through as light workers, isn't it?
So what's the solution? I think for me personally is to first realize that actually I'm doing a lot already, but I could be doing a bit more as well. Hence, when I look at my own journey, I could have been doing a lot more in terms of marketing the books or doing more talks like this, for example, more live interviews. I could be doing a lot more. But then again, there's only one of me. And
right. Exactly.
I read somewhere that the best way of serving the world is to serve yourself first. The best way of taking care of the world is to take optimum self-care of myself first. And that's where I'm at, is the whole world, we all come through a really tumultuous 6 months. And the question a lot of people are asking through my own conversations is, what's next? What's next for all of us? How best can I contribute from here on? I mean, there are a number of things happening on a global scale in the next few weeks, months. We got Brexit happening for the UK, and then we got the US elections coming up, and the pandemic is still not going away. I think as winter months approach, we probably get more and more of the infection rates going up. So the next few months are going to be very challenging and interesting times ahead for all of us. And the key thing to me during that time is to, yes, look after ourselves first, but also keep a look out for others, because truthfully, you and I, and probably most of the people watching this, are in a relatively good position compared to a lot of people out in the world. A lot of people will be jobless soon, already are jobless. Places like India, Brazil, the infection rates are creeping up and their economies are virtually dead right now. So there's going to be a lot of disruption in the coming weeks and months. And I think the key for us, people like us, is to keep them in mind as well. and do what we can to support our own local communities in the coming weeks and months, as well as looking after ourselves in the nicest possible way.
Yeah, and doing that self-care, that is so essential. We have to take care of ourselves. So tell us what you do for your own self-care. How do you feed yourself?
So nutrition is very important for me. I mean, I must say I've been having a bit of junk food lately, because last week with some friends, we had a film night, 3 nights running. But it all begins with adequate nutrition, adequate rest. I do have a meditation practice. I have a daily practice which I learned from Sadhguru. So I do that most mornings. I spend a lot of time in my back garden and in nature. And I try and keep away from electronic devices as much as I can. I'm beginning to leave my phone behind and I go for walks. I'm switching off. One thing I could be doing better is getting more sleep. I've been a bit of a night owl lately, but all that is changing in the coming weeks and months. So it comes back to more sleep, more nutrition, more time in nature, and focus times when I do work. It's already much more focused. Because like a lot of people probably watching this, it's very easy to be distracted, and I can get distracted as well. So it's like asking myself, reminding myself, is this really the best use of my time? Does this serve my mission? Does this serve my purpose? And if not, then reminding myself to go back and switching off. I used to wear a rubber band as a reminder to ping myself and get back to what's important. But yeah.
It's a way to bring you to your focus, isn't it?
Yeah.
I used to compete in darts, steel tilt darts, and that was a tool that I used. Have a rubber band around your wrist, and then you just snap it, and it brings you right back into focus and brings you to centering yourself. So we can do that out in the world when we're being reminded to turn off the electronics, turn off Facebook, turn off the computer, the phone, set it aside, and really spend that time feeding your soul. It's so essential. It really is, for us to take care of ourselves. It's our oxygen. Our oxygen for the soul is that meditation time. It's that time to really get into us.
I've written a very short ebook exactly around this. I'll post it in the conversation thread afterwards. People can just download it. It's very simple but smart ways of focusing and avoiding distractions. There's no rocket science in what I've written, but it'd be a nice way of reading everything in one place. But I think the key thing is also to just remind yourself of your bigger mission. And again, bigger mission doesn't have to be world-changing, or can be helping your local community or making a difference through all your interactions with every person you meet every day, whether in person or virtually. So all those little things will build up. And to remind yourself that's more important than sharing something on Facebook, for example.
Absolutely. And I believe it's so important for us to maintain a positive attitude. We can look out at all the things going wrong in the world, and we can get very down on ourselves and on politicians and everyone that we consider being in control of things. But if we keep that positive attitude, and we know that we are creating with our energy, we're creating a frequency that's going out, that is making a difference. It's making a difference in the lives of others when we raise the vibration. So to me, that is one of the most important things we can do as light workers. We can find ways to lift ourselves up. How do you, is there one little trick that you do to raise your vibration? What's something that you can get into really easily?
One of the things I do, again, I could demonstrate if you had more time, I do African drumming. I have African drums. I go into the back garden and drum, or I do some hula hooping, or if it's possible, just be around some kids. I get on really well with children generally, and so just being around their energy and just playing with them, just kicking a ball around and little things like that. Or just listening to some recorded laughter, children's laughter, that's the trick as well.
Isn't that awesome?
Yeah.
Laughter is the thing that raises our vibration quicker than anything else.
Probably, yeah.
Yeah. So getting into laughter, whatever that looks like, and whatever brings you to that point of laughter.
Yeah. Or doing something physical, like rebounding or hula hooping or just simple running, walking. I do a lot of walking and running. Not so much running, but I do a lot of walking. I've got the virtual London Marathon happening in 3.5 weeks' time. So that serves me in many different ways. Gets me fit, it gets me into nature, gets me to meet people. So whatever that works for people. If someone is very physical, they can go out running, and it's a very quick way of changing your mental state.
Beautiful. I love all of that. And
It's science, we know all of this, right?
yeah. And music also. I try to surround myself with music.
Music as well.
Yeah. If I'm not hearing it, I'm singing it just to get into that energy of lightness. Arvind, this has been an amazing discussion. I just want to thank you again for being here today. And to all of you who were watching this, I love you and thank you for supporting this show and supporting this journey that we're on and coming together as family, lifting each other up and sharing and the positive out there. And you have just been such a delight, Arvind, to be with.
Thank you for having me. And maybe I can just end by reading a little passage from it's a chapter which is some final words from me. So if I end with this. So here are my final thoughts. Now reading exactly from the book. This is page 111 in the book. So remember that your life counts and make it count. You are unique. There's no one like you on this planet. Never has been and never will be. So do not sell yourself short. Do not sell the world short. This is your life. Love it, live it. One life, one chance, grab it. Get the life you love and live it.
Just beautiful.
Those are my final words.
I love that. So if people want to find you and get more of you and your teachings and your coaching and everything that you're about, what's the best way for us to find you out there in the world?
I'm on Facebook, but they can also find me through my website. It's arvinddevalia.com. I'm also launching another website initiative soon called the Make It Happen Club. So they can also go to makeithappenclub.com. If they're interested in the book, it's on Amazon, Get the Life You Love. It's available in printed copies or Kindle as well. And if you just Google my name, I'll come up. And if you guys are ever in London, then do visit. Do come and join us at the picnic, the annual picnic we have.
I would love to. That's on my list. I'm going to be doing some traveling and definitely would love to come to London. And we have many of our family that gathers on our lives that are over in the England area. So those of you that are over there, just reach out to Arvind and just see.
It's great to meet. Great to connect.
Yeah, just meet him in person. And we also have a book club through Enlightened World called the Soul Food Book Club. And one of our members is on and she goes, I think it would be great to have this book for one of our books that we all read together and discuss together. And one of the things that we do is have the author of the book come on if possible. So we'll be talking to you about that, Arvind, and how that might look in the future. Yeah.
Definitely. Well, thank you again for having me. And I know we're running out of time here.
Yes.
But it's been a real honor and privilege. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
It has been such a delight to talk to you and to spend this time together with you. And I'm so grateful for the introduction that was made that brought us together. And I know that it's going to be long term that we keep talking with each other and sharing things.
Definitely.
Yeah. And so we'll be together again on the live. So thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Namaste, everyone. And thank you.
Have a great day and stay tuned on Enlightened World Network. There's more to come today. So stay with us and much love to all of you. And get the life that you love and live it. Bye, everybody.
Bye. Bye.